Well, it's Friday night again. We're hitting the deep summer. Weather's kind of a little crazy. Goes from cold to hot to hot to cold. But here we are once again. Another edition of Saturday Pre-Flight. Your jump off to the weekend. Thank you for tuning in. And tonight we have some good stuff tonight. We have some really good stuff tonight. First off, we're going to be looking back at the 1990s when TV studios took time and took chances to bring some great programming to its viewers. We're going to be, this is going to be several parts to this. Part one tonight, we will be talking about CBS Late Night, where before Letterman got on the air, CBS did take a chance with TV series. We'll be discussing about that, crime time after prime time. Next, in our video segment, Off My Shelf, we'll be also looking at an independent TV movie that became a TV series. Very sexy superhero. And we're talking R-rated sexy. And I tell you, it's a hard one to get, and we'll discuss that more as we go along the show. Then we check in with you, the viewers, to see what you're thinking of this week, your comments on there. And of course, we'll be checking in with SVENGOOLIE with the movie of the week, which will be taking a trip to the Old West this week. So we've gotten all that together. So here is the Fast Five. This past current week, we see first on here. Tell me if you haven't heard this one before. British tabloids are reporting that Jodie Whittaker will be leaving Doctor Who after 2022. I mean, how many times do we want to hear this? I mean, does anybody care out there if she's still with the show? Is anyone still watching the newer episodes of Doctor Who? I happen to be not one of them, because basically I've considered the newer Doctor Who dead to me, because it's just horrible. It is just really horrible they've done on there. I mean, you know, I respected Jodie Whittaker at points because she's done some earlier stuff. You know, Attack of the Block 2 is going into pre-production. They're looking into creating a sequel to that hit, which Jodie Whittaker was in. Is she going to be in it? We don't know. But you know, from time to time we get these rumors, especially the British tabloids. They tend to be harder on the rumors now, but with the internet, between Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, you never know what's going to happen next. Will they, when they change over, if it is true, would it be better? I don't know, because basically the writing has been horrendous, and the BBC hasn't done so well with its viewers. And it's not only Doctor Who, many other TV shows. All you got to do is watch a few minutes of their shows and you can see the agenda the BBC is throwing at you. Next, director James Mangold had a complete meltdown on social media this past week, over last weekend, concerning he's the new director of the Indiana Jones. Spielberg would not be directing this incarnation of this series. Basically, he's stepping aside just as an executive producer. Mangold is stepping in his shoes. Someone had tweeted out, another YouTuber podcaster had mentioned these things, that Spielberg is not directing, Kathleen Kennedy is producing, Harrison Ford is 78 years old, and it's written by Jonathan Kaysen, who wrote Solo. When Mangold heard that, he just went on a tirade for hours. I mean, the movie itself is in production right now. We've seen stills of it already. Why is he on social media yelling at YouTubers and fans? I mean, that's the one thing, is you don't piss off the fans. They don't hate you, James. They just hate the situation of what is going on with this movie. You are a decent director. You've been around for quite some time. You've given us some good films. But unfortunately, this is what happens, especially when you're working for Disney. Next, we discussed this on another episode of Madman with the Show the other day. Nintendo threatens YouTubers with legal action if they stream the E3 conference. Basically, one thing is that they sent these out in tweets that they did not want any YouTubers co-streaming any of their footage. And that kind of pissed off a lot of YouTubers. And it even pissed off Twitch to the point where Twitch did not air the Nintendo conference. I mean, like I said in the show, I mean, you got to respect these people, these YouTubers. They're giving you free advertisement. They could either make you a success or they can sink you. And I've always said, there's no such thing as bad press. You can have good press and bad press. It's just press and advertisement for your product. Then, if you're not familiar with this, Kaiju number 8 manga has broken a record through the world. It has sold digitally and in book form over 3 million copies of their manga. That is a big number in record time. That's going to show you how popular that manga is right now. That basically it's especially here in the States, it has overtaken the comic book industries. We've discussed it before, where the graphic novels top 20 list is saturated with just manga books, period. Not a sign of a single American comic book, whether it's Marvel, DC, or any independents in that listing. And all you need to get on that list is to be at least 10,000 in sales. So, if you can't sell at least 10,000 in there and you're not on that list, you got to rethink the situation. And finally, last week at the box office weekend, week 24, we saw the return of A Quiet Place Part 2 to the number 1 spot with 12 million in the gross. The new Warner Brothers movie musical done by the creator of Hamilton, In the Heights, had a dismal start as it being new on the list at 11,500,000. Followed number 3 by The Conjuring with 10 million, and new on the list, Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway with 10 million as well. Rounding off with Cruella still dropping off at 6,700,000 on there. And considering that we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 new entries to the box office, and most of them did not do above $300,000 on there. So it shows you that basically the box office is still growing, but the films that are being put out are either not being advertised right or just basically not interested by the theater goer. So that's our Fast Five for this week. I always tout back that the 80s and 90s was good for programming. Networks and independent stations, and at the time, the early cable stations like HBO and Showtime and Cinemax were taking chances with small independent programming or programming you wouldn't even think to put on primetime, but you put it elsewhere in the schedule. In the 70s and into the 80s, the network CBS basically was trying to compete. You had late night. You couldn't compete with Johnny Carson at the time. Johnny Carson was the big thing at the time, and Fox was just starting up, and pretty much everything else was just the standard programming that you would see on network television in the late night period. So what would you do as a network to try to attract viewers? Basically, you would either do a late night talk show to try to compete with Johnny Carson at the time, or you would do what CBS did at the time. They would do either the what they did at first was the CBS late movie, which basically they showed a lot of great films in the 70s into the mid 80s. Then toward the 90s, they started to rebroadcast some of their TV shows on the late night slot and some more movies from other networks on the CBS station. But when they got to about 89, they started to make a change to late night television. They brought in the Pat Sajak show, which ran for about 90 minutes, and the ratings weren't that great. Again, you couldn't compete with Johnny Carson at the time, so they shortened it to 60 minutes, and then they started to bring in other programming, old episodes of the Patrick McGoogan spy series, The Prisoner. They started bringing in old primetime shows. You know, you had Wise Guy at the time, 21 Jump Street, NBC Stingray. They were showing episodes of that on CBS. And it was a couple other things. But then they started to change a bit. And what happened was they started looking at something else for a little bit. And what happened was right after they knocked out Sajak, in 91, obviously we had the Gulf War. So a lot of people were focused on the Gulf War at the time. And CBS took the time to retool and reblock their series. And what they did was they created a new block of programming daily on late night called Crime Time After Prime Time. And it was a lot of shows that were they were mostly dramas, and they were heavily imported from Canada. Because right now Canada was producing a lot of great independent shows. And what they created was they had a lot of programming. Some of them became very popular, and others just didn't do well, or they did well on other networks. They were bought out by other networks, and then others faded out for a little bit and then was rebought by other networks. And then others just ended up on DVD, Blu-ray on there. And the names of the series was also changed as they were sold to overseas companies. They made it to overseas, and they were popular. They were under different names, and you could find it under different names for like one particular one on there. You had programming. It was like late Monday night, Tuesday mornings. It ran about the same time, around 11:30 midnight on there. Some of the content was very strong on this, surprisingly for a network channel. You know, when that period, you were dealing with censorship, not censorship, but basically you had people just literally looking at what you were programming, and they would basically remove stuff like certain sex scenes and certain talk and stuff like that. It's similar to like what happened with 4Kids, where they were removing guns off animated characters for Saturday morning cartoons on the Yu-Gi-Oh! TV series. But what happened here is you got some sexy stuff, you got some real good action. Some of the stuff is fantastic to this day. Some of it you can find right now on Tubi TV. You had shows like Sweating Bullets, The Exile, Urban Angel, Scene of the Crime, Dangerous Curves, Fly By Night, Dark Justice, and the two that were the most successful of them all, Forever Night and Silk Stockings. Silk Stockings was a fantastic series, and it ran for a good period of time. It ran from 91 to about 99 between CBS and the USA Network. It was created by Stephen J. Cannell, so you know where we're getting to on some of these series. You had Rob Estes, if you're familiar with him, and Mitzi Capture, a very sexy woman that she is. And you had a series that basically was crimes of passion, undercover work. I mean, this was really, the opening alone is sexy, had a sexy musical score and a sexy opening to it. And week to week, you had all these crimes going around, and it always had to deal with some sex thing going on. Even though if it dealt with bank robbery, crimes, drugs, or anything of that nature. These were a lot of good episodes that aired on both networks. And then, you also had Forever Knight. And Forever Knight was something into the horror genre, which was basically, like you said, this was a Canada television series, and it took place in Toronto. And the basis of it was that it was a cop who was actually a vampire, and he was trying to reclaim his soul by, helping people. And it was played by Garrett Wynne Davies. Nigel Bennett was in it, Deborah Duche, Catherine Disher. It is a good craft. Lisa Ryder was also in there as well. It is a good cast. The thing about it is, you may ask yourself, well, if he was a cop, he couldn't be working in the day. No, he didn't work into the day. He put himself that he had a skin disorder. He had something, photo allergy to skin, that basically photodermatitis, which basically, if sunlight hit your skin, that basically you would get sick. And this is how he was able to walk around and get a night shift in the police department. And there were a lot of great episodes, and you got a lot of flashbacks. Nigel Bennett played one of the other vampires, who basically was, who brought him in to be a vampire in the series with Deborah Duchesne. You had a lot of good backstories, and it kind of sort of helped progress the story forward, because he'll remember something from the past that are basically similar to what was going on. This ended up about a couple of seasons on there, about 3-4 seasons, and other networks picked up on it. This was a USA Network also picked up on it as well. This was well distributed. You can get it on DVD right now. I think it's needing a restoration. I don't know if it's Blu-ray, but you can watch the entire series on Tubi TV right now. And I tell you, it's worth it. It is worth it. If you love the vampire genre, this is such a great take. There's some other vampire series, and this is like, toward the Buffy series and a couple of others that were in that period. There were a lot of vampire stuff coming into the 90s. You could go through a list, and there was so many series that came forward after Forever Knight. The other series, which basically was on CBS and then later was rerun on TNT, was Dark Justice. This was a little harder to get on there and to find. Mostly overseas, you could probably find a DVD on this. I believe there might be something on there, but you might pay a bit. The main premise of this one as well, it's about a judge who basically becomes a vigilante at night. If he can't resolve the situation during the day, he comes back as night on a motorcycle, and he basically dispenses his own justice. And it is a really good cast. Rami Zada, Bruce Abbott, Janet Gunn, Dick O'Neill, Clayton Prince, Vivian Vibes, Carrie Ann Moss is also in this series as well. It ran for about 3 seasons, and it was a decent one. This one wasn't, the one that hit major popular. This series was based on the Jack Higgins novel. I think it was Henry Patterson. Henry Patterson was his pseudonym on there as well. But it was under the same novel named Dark Justice. which I haven't seen prints on it for a while on that one as well. I don't know if it's still in print or if not. I haven't really looked. But yeah, it was very unusual for its time period. And I'll tell you, CBS had it going for a while, and it was working for a bit. And then, of course, you had another one called Sweating Bullets. If you're a viewer of mine outside the United States, it's also known as Tropical Heat. You can look it up as that. It's also a Canadian action series in cooperation with Mexico and Israel. And it ran from 91 to 93. Ran for 3 seasons, 66 episodes. The first part was filmed in Puerto Vallarta, and then they went a little bit all over the place on there. Stars Rob Stewart, Carolyn Dunn, David Bland, Ian Tracy, Eugene Clark. It revolves about, a private investigator, an ex-DEA agent, sort of coming to a resort town, setting up a detective agency, and they meet up with a sexy, beautiful tourist, and they solve. It's a basic series. They solve different cases here and there. I mean, some people it's remnants of the Acapulco Heat TV series, which actually that one's a little bit different, but it was one thing about then when you get Silk Stockings, Tropical Heat, Acapulco Heat, it was that sexy look that you had. You had the bikinis, the tan, you had all this that was going on in these series. Some of them had sex involved. For the ladies, you had the buff guy, oiled down. And that's the way a lot of this was, and it worked very well. This ended up on primetime for a bit, and then it just continued on. It continued pretty well overseas, to the point where basically you could find this, all of them, on DVD right now. Then, of course, you had some that they were female driven. You could say, a lot of people say, well, we didn't have that many series that were really focused around women on there. But no, actually, from this point of view, the networks did take a chance on a lot of series like that. Some of them were well known, and others weren't not. One of the series that was on CBS Primetime was Dangerous Curves, starring Lisa Cutler and Michelle. If you're not familiar with Michelle, she was opposite Wesley Snipes in New Jack City. And it's basically about 2 former police officers who works for a security service. And mostly they handle all these caseworks, which deals with international criminals, terrorists. There were some changes in the cast that went on by. This did about 2 seasons and 34 episodes, but it's not well known on there. I mean, there are some people that, if real diehard fans that still like these older shows, basically they'll tell you about this. But also there was another series on there called Scene of the Crime, staying in the mythos onto these, which was done by Stephen J. Cannell, and that one was with concerning this. The best way to say this is it's almost similar to American Horror Story without the horror. Scene of the Crime was a mystery anthology series, and it lasted about 22 episodes, 2 seasons. And what we did was basically Cannell, instead of changing getting new actors for every episode on there, they kept the cast and basically changed their roles, changed their characters. So one week you might have seen them as a cop, one character as a cop, next thing you saw them as a bad guy. This was a Vancouver, British Columbia series, and it was okay. I mean, you had Terry Austin, Kim Coates, Lisa Hole, Stephen McCaddy, Maxine Miller, Francis Muga. I mean, some of these people were in other series that were on the CBS primetime series on there. And, you know, just to see this, and then later on you hear about American Horror Story where people were twisted in to create different characters using the same actors on a constant basis. You know, it had to come from somewhere on there, but it's nice to see that you know, you get something like that from them. Like I said, you know, you get certain series that did well and certain series that didn't. And this was happening in this era. CBS was one of several players working with many different companies. I mean, you know, you have Universal, you had MGM, you had Paramount, you had a lot of companies that were creating content, that they were taking stuff, some of them from famous people, others from new people that today that they're basically their top line. You know, they're top in the business now because they took the chances. CBS took the chance on there. After a time period, it didn't do well. By the late August in '93, the block was basically eliminated. And you could take a guess what we replaced with was basically the late night wars was getting really big right now, and CBS gave a time slot to David Letterman. There's a great movie out there. In 1996, a movie came out called The Late Shift, which described what went on in this time period with Letterman and Jay Leno, because you had the point where Letterman was given the time slot in '93 after going through this whole situation with Johnny Carson retiring. Things were changing. Jay Leno had taken over the slot temporarily, and it's great to see this. I mean, to see this from one point of view of this author, and to see it on the two gentlemen that plays the roles on there, and to see all the players that were involved in this, and to see what CBS had to go through for the 20 years that they went through trying to figure out their late night slot. This is what we need back in. We need to take the chances. We need to take, you know, Hollywood needs to start to stop looking at what they think that they're going to make money on by destroying great TV series, movies, hurting themselves by the fans, you know, all the fights on Twitter and all the social media. You know, we don't need this stuff. You know, I tell people, it says, you know, walk away from it. Walk away from the programming. If you don't like it, walk away from it. I walked away from Doctor Who. The only Doctor Who I watch is any of the classic stuff. The classics from the early days, from the 60s to the 90s. You know, and I enjoy those every time I watch them. I love those. You know, and every once in a while I'll watch a Silk Stockings or Forever Night episode. They were really good series. They were very well done, and it was a time that, you know, they took a chance. They took a real good chance at this, you know. Hollywood can't be scared anymore. They can't be scared anymore. You know, they have to stop bending the knee to the small individuals. They're only small individuals. They're only one or two people, really. One or two people that'll tell them, they says, we don't like this. Okay, fine. You don't like it, you don't have to eat it, as my mom used to say. When you have the bigger group of people, the real fans, the people who watch this, a lot of people on the Twitterverse don't watch a lot of the programming, don't read the comics, don't watch the anime, don't watch the cartoons. You know, it is just a mess on Twitter. We saw a report come out that basically 95% of the comic book readers don't have an account on Twitter or don't correspond with anything on Twitter concerning comic books. That's a big number. That's a very big number. And this doesn't come from someone independent. This comes from 2 marketing firms that Mark Millar had put in an article. You know him. He did that Jupiter's Legacy that got canceled quick after 1 season. He's got Super Crooks coming out, but he looked into it. It's like he asked people he knows in the business, what's going on? People don't want to see this. They want to see other things. They want to see new stuff. They want to focus on new things. Challenge yourself. The industry sees anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 scripts that get copyrighted or something like that, to that nature, that basically they're assigned, that ends up on somebody's desk. And only at least maybe 1 to 5% end up being produced. Think about that for a minute. There's tons of stuff on there they don't want to take a chance. They'll say, well, I don't know. This doesn't sound. You see a lot of guys on YouTube these days, and they're producing some great content, some very good content. And I'm not talking about regular talk shows. I'm talking about little mini movies, fan stuff. I mean, we've seen some great Star Trek stuff come out of YouTube, and then now the lawsuits because basically CBS didn't like that. The fan stuff is the stuff that drives people. We talk about these at the conventions. Take a listen to the fans, Hollywood. Take a listen to them. They know better. They know what they want. They're the ones who sit there and spend money. You want to make money. You want to make money on there. Stop overspending on your films. Hire people with artistic value, because that's what a lot of this stuff was artistically done. It was very beautifully done. Look at Forever Night, how it was shot and filmed. Very beautifully done. Similar to the Highlander TV series, similar to the Hercules and Xena TV series, which we'll be discussing in another part very soon on this one. And you have to ask yourself, when will they learn? When will they run out of money? We've had other videos that we discussed that basically they're trying to avoid tax laws to keep them well stocked in cash. But eventually that money is going to run out. It's going to run out eventually. Laws will get changed. And when that happens, where are you going to be, Hollywood? The independent productions will overtake. That's coming. Don't know when. Don't know how. But hey, they're out there producing. In part 2 of this great little thing we've put together, we will continue this story with another series. You had, like I said, CBS Primetime. You had another company with Action Pack, which basically had a lot of great series. A lot of it was done by Universal Television, and some of the great TV series came out of it. Of course, the Hercules and the Xena TV series, but they also had some stuff in between that was also very good. Action Pack ended up to be one of the longest in the business. And even William Shatner had a TV series. If you're not familiar with this, he had a novel that basically was ghostwritten called Tech War. And we'll discuss that on the next edition of Saturday Pre-Flight. Do tune in, because this one had a lot of great series. Some of them were from movies. Some of them were from movies that were made into TV series. You wouldn't believe what they made into. Some of them didn't turn out too well. And then there was one series that basically was well done, but it just didn't kick off. It didn't hit well with the audiences. That'll be on our next edition of Saturday Pre-Flight, Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern on QTCast TV, here on various social media platforms, including YouTube, Odyssey, Minds, BitChute. So do tune in, because we got an action pack for you. So let's check what is on my video shelf this week. And we're going to continue with the level we are at. This week on my video shelf, I bring you a hard one to get these days. Still out there, it hasn't gotten should get a Blu-ray release. This one has to, with the subject matter we discussed today on TV shows, older programmings from the 1990s that a lot of these companies took chances. Believe it or not, Showtime had their chance with independent stuff like this. And this particular series, they went into a direction with superheroes with a sexy type point of view. And this one was done by Roger Corman and directed by Jonathan Winfrey. It is the 1995 Black Scorpion. And this is a great series. It stars Joan Severance. What can I say about her? If you have not seen a Joan Severance movie, do catch anything she's done. I mean, some of them, the plots are like a little crazy, but let me tell you, she is one hell of a sexy woman. Especially catch her in the second season of Wise Guy. I think it's the second half of the first season, if I'm not mistaken, where she plays the sister of Kevin Spacey. A psychotic woman. I mean, she plays, hands down, one of her best roles is Wise Guy, where, she plays this role to perfection. And back in the 90s, in 95, she did a sort of Batwoman, Batgirl, however you want to call it, called Black Scorpion. And what this was for Showtime Cable Network. They did 2 or 3 movies on this. And then it became a TV series. They changed Joan Severance on there and went to Sci-Fi Channel. TV series is harder to get now. It's like about $120 if you can find it on DVD. But basically, it's about a police detective who's fighting for justice. Couldn't get it by legal matters, so she dons a mask and a sexy outfit, and goes to work on crime in the city with a little sex in between. And I tell you, he also stars Bruce Abbott, Garrett Morris, Rick Rossovich, Stephen Lee, Terry J. Vaughn, Michael Wiseman, Brad Tatum. It's Casey Cemento, if you remember him from Young Guns. It is a decent movie. I mean, it is a decent movie. This was a movie series. There was another movie, it was called Aftershock, and I think the name was changed a couple of times. I think it's Aftershock or Ground Zero, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, this was done for Showtime, so basically it was an R-rated superhero flick, like a Deadpool. Some of the scripting gets a little crazy and stuff like that. The villain is over the top, sort of a Darth Vader type. So, you kind of expect it. Her car scenes where she has a car that just changes its look and stuff like that was pretty cool for this time period. Because, in the 90s, you had some shows that did some amazing things with cars. Not also, Knight Rider off to the side. But there were other things that were out that were pretty fantastic as far as special effects. I mean, this was not, heavily big budgeted, but it did well on Sci-Fi. Showtime for enough for it to get its own TV series. In fact, Black Scorpion was turned into a comic series published digitally by Devil's Due Digital. And then there was a one-off Legend of, I can't say the other, and a comic was published by Blue Water Productions as well. So this is one, you could probably find it out there for roughly about $15 for the DVD, about $10 for the VHS, but the price does tend to go up. I think I've seen it as high as $100, $120 to $200 for the TV series. The second DVD, I've seen it up from about $35 and up as far as that. And there is one other movie, I think Sting of the Black Scorpion also is out there, and that starts for about $10 and up. Like I said, it is one of these crazy series that they did try out. It worked to a point, and you know, on Showtime, very sexy. A lot of the sex appeal was left out in the TV series. You know, because there were literally sex scenes in the series. Considering that there was an article this week that there might have been a particular scene in the Harley Quinn animated series season 3 with Batman and Catwoman, and Batman doing something nasty, and people were writing, no, superheroes don't do that. Well, let's tout back to Black Scorpion and a couple of others. So that's my video of the week. Well, we've reached the most important part of the video, you the viewer. That's right, we're going to go over some of your comments. What's on your mind this week? Let's start off with, okay, if my Korean is a little rusty, I think that's last name. I think that's what it translates into. If this is a person from Korea or just changed the language into Korea. And if it is from Korea, welcome aboard. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, it can't be monopoly. Sony is just a small company compared to those. I have to disagree with that. Sony is a large company, many vast divisions. You have to remember, the story that this handled was the Crunchyroll story. Animation is not their only department. They have a movie company, Hollywood. They have a manufacturer division. They have many various different divisions. They're very large. I mean, at points, not as probably about as large as Amazon Prime, as far as the other two, Hulu and Netflix. As far as a streaming site, yeah, they are small in itself, but I think what Sony is concentrating more on is creating the content and not a streaming site, or they wouldn't have sold off Crackle, because you have to understand, Sony had Crackle, sold it to Chicken Soup for the Soul. Why would you do that? Because the money is better creating the product and selling it to each individual streaming site. So that's where the money is for them. Thank you again, last name. Cyan ENJ, and this is on the Retro Crush thing. I don't know if this smells a good thing or bad. This is what I said. It's basically, Retro Crush is free out there. And let's go to the other two comments on there from Chris Dolan and Johnny Hernandez, which says, Chris Dolan says, Retro Crush is also on Vivo Smart TV as well. And Johnny Hernandez says, Retro Crush is also available on the Roku channel, Plex, and is another channel called Content Anime. The reason I read all of those three together is you could see from Chris Dolan and Johnny that they have it on other services. Retro Crush is on various, whether it's Android, Apple, Fire Stick, Chromecast, Roku, Vizio, Samsung TV. You know, you can watch this on various different formats, areas. I think Amazon Prime has a section for Retro Crush as well. So, you know, so it's all over the place. Why would Peacock do this? I mean, it is kind of ridiculous. If they're trying to get into the anime streaming wars, this is not the way to do it. It is the worst way to do it. And it's just, it's just going to be failure. It's just going to be failure for them. I mean, they may get some people on there, but you know, when you hear Peacock or NBC, you don't think of anime. You don't think of anime at all. Thanks again, all three of you, Jay, Chris Dolan, and Johnny Hernandez. And please continue watching. I know you guys have been watching for quite some time, and you do a lot of commenting on there. Jacqueline Beverly on the Arrowverse, CW. CW didn't cancel Swamp Thing. It was canceled by DC Universe after one season, and then it was played on the CW. Yes, and it's a fine line on this one. And that's the way I said it, the way I said. If you look at the perspective of the whole situation, yes, DC Universe via Warner canceled it. Now, CW took it, put it on CW Seed. It did well on CW Seed. Then they were considering to bring it to CW. They wanted to see how it would do on the CW network, so they brought it to the CW network, ran it, saw what it would have cost, because they had to look into the perspective of international, because the international would have paid for it, and the money wasn't there really. So they really didn't go any further than that. But they still might use Swamp Thing in maybe Legends of Tomorrow, if Legends of Tomorrow doesn't get canceled by now. So in a way, it got a dual cancellation in a way or another. It's, it's politics. Yes, it was canceled at DC Universe. CW had the option to pick it up. It's like with Supergirl. They bought it off from CBS. They had the option to run it on there. They decided to go make the production, and they got a couple seasons out of it. This happens. It's part of the business nature. Thank you again, Jacqueline Beverly. And finally, Chris Dolan again. It's like Disney when they did the Captain Marvel and they made money, and I heard there were empty seats. Yes, that's right. This, a lot of the stuff that I said on that video, that was the Hollywood failure. If you have not caught that little segment that I did on Mad Men with the show. A lot of producers, when they're trying to promote the movie, the independent film producers were the ones who really kind of coined this. And what happened was, like at Sundance and stuff like that, they wanted to make sure that Hollywood saw that basically the film was doing well at those festivals. So they ended up buying all the tickets on there to try to promote the thing, to promote the movie. But, what happened in the end is Hollywood did the same, and it was just so they can keep the money up, send that money out, and, as I said on the video, put the dollar from the front pocket to the back pocket. It's business, tax, accounting. There is a character on the first season of Wise Guy, and he worked for one of the big mafia dons, but he was an accountant. Didn't kill anybody, nothing like that. As the head don would say, nah, he hasn't shot anybody and all that. We're just there to make sure the books are okay. That's the way Hollywood is. They got some sort of mobster accounting, and they're going to find every loophole to be able to either make some money or make the public realize that they are making money, and they say, hey, they must be doing something right. Maybe I should go see the movie. But, these are the things when, you have movies that have lost their artistic expression. And that's what the main basis is. Film was an artistic expression. You go back to from the beginning of filmmaking, and you see the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. I mean, you had Cecil B. DeMille, Orson Welles, Francis Ford Coppola. You look at all these directors throughout the decades, and you look at the directors now. There are not as many good directors now as there was back then that uses artistic value. I mean, a lot of the newer directors that are coming up now, it's like somebody said who's in the business that they just basically, they're just creating an explosion to finish off the movie at the end to make everybody excited. They're doing another Marvel's Endgame. The Avengers Endgame. That's all they're doing. They're not creating, they're not molding, creating. If they spend half their time there on social media criticizing fans, they could sit there and figure out that, hey, maybe I'm doing something wrong. And, that's the crazy thing, that is going on in Hollywood. And like I said, why aren't they broke? Why aren't they broke? Thank you again, Chris Dolan. I want to thank everybody. I know this was a short week, short comment section. It's middle June going into summer. A lot of people start to do things outside. The weather is nice, so probably some of the comment lines will be short, and some of them will be long. We'll try to get them all out. I know my other social media platforms have gone a little quiet because basically, it's the summer. It happens. But once again, thank you for those who are still watching. Because great thing is you can watch this at any time. You don't have to watch at 10 p.m. Eastern. You can watch it later on. We do keep it up as long as possible. We're going to be making some changes soon where you'll be able to get it a little bit more easier. We're working on that. So look for that very soon. So before we leave, let's check in with METV and SVENGOOLIE for the movie of the week.
This week on SVENGOOLIE,
a vampire.
Yeah, a vampire gunfighter.
I'd say it was more like a curse.
It's Curse of the Undead on the next SVENGOOLIE.
I'm deeply impressed.
Saturday night on METV.
That's right, folks. It's Curse of the Undead, 1959. I haven't seen this one, but it kind of reminds me of those Jesse James horror films they used to have. I think Jesse James and Dracula, a couple of those that were out there. This movie stars Eric Fleming, Michael Pate, Kathleen Crowley, John Hoyt, Bruce Gordon, and Helen Neeb. And the main premise of this, it's the Old West, and a gunslinger comes to town for hire, and actually turns out to be a vampire. I mean, good premise. Very good premise. We've seen westerns with vampires in it in present movies that are out there. Robert Rodriguez was known to do those as well, and a couple of others. And this one looks pretty good. Like I said, I haven't seen this one. Maybe I'm gonna have to watch this one this weekend. I know the last couple of ones I've enjoyed on there. The next couple of ones, I think he's got some good ones coming out very soon too. I mean, I hope they do another kaiju one. It'll be nice to have them doing a kaiju over the summer months on there. So, Curse of the Undead, 8 p.m. Eastern on your local METV channel. If you don't have METV, obviously go over to METV.com to find out where in the world you can pick up SVENGOOLIE. But actually, there are two ways you could do it mostly. I think there's a third, but that's just getting something else. But you can check your local cable company and also get an antenna. Check on METV.com. Find out your local what station they're running on. There are some major changes. So if you've had an antenna and it hasn't worked before, it's time to upgrade that antenna. There's a YouTuber named Antenna Man. Check with him. He will tell you the best ones to pick up for that and reasonable, because there are a lot of them out there that are junk. And don't get suckered in to buy a 4K antenna. There's really technically no such thing. It's a high definition. It's just a standard high definition antenna. But they're out there, and he'll be able to direct you in. But like I said, the FCC has been doing a lot of changes, a lot of frequency. They've sold off a lot of the frequencies. So there's been a lot of compression out there. So some channels are not in the same place, or they're in a lower, and I'm talking low frequency out there. So thank you for tuning in this week. Oh man, the weather's getting nice now out. A lot of places have lifted their COVID restrictions, which is great. We can finally get out. I hear Disney World, I think they're going to full capacity. Disneyland is increasing capacity. I mean, everywhere is opening up. We're getting out. Do get out, But first, don't forget, Saturday morning, do check out the Saturday morning cartoons on METV. Bingo, that's perfect on there. Then get out. Get some sun, get some vitamin D in you, and then when you come home that night, you sit back, relax, take in a little SVENGOOLIE on METV as well. And if you want to get a chance, check out our other shows if you haven't caught them on Madman with the Show, or Saturday Pre-Flight here on Cast TV. And also, we do have classic episodes of our old public access TV show, Rabbity Rabbit and Friends. It's available in the channel Cast TV below there. You can go over, check them out. They're real fun to watch. We're trying to put together some new episodes as far as taking the classic ones and getting them remastered. It takes money, and we don't have that right now. So right now it's on hold, but eventually I think we're going to try to get one or two together quickly in a basic remaster, so you'll be able to watch it. Something that's not too degraded. I mean, there are a couple of episodes that are not too bad that just need a little spray paint. But do check it out. Also, don't forget, we're available on various social media platforms in the description below. Also, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and share this video. Have yourself a good weekend. Enjoy. Bye-bye now. See you next week, 10 p.m. Eastern, here on your local social media platform. If you're watching us on YouTube, Minds, or BitChute, which is carried at the 10 p.m. slot. Or we'll see you on Odyssey later on in the day on Saturday. Thank you again. Bye-bye now.